right, guys. Good night. And let's get started. So, tonight I want to take a look at this idea of hiding or deflecting, making excuses, deceiving our own selves. It is something that we all do, and it is very destructive, and it could stunt your growth. It can cause you to stagnate as a person, cause you to be blind. It's really a disadvantageous thing that you don't want in your life, right? It's not good. It's very bad, but it's one of those things that go undetected. In my mind, people don't consider it to be a sin. People don't recognize it. And people don't recognize how destructive it is. And so it is allowed to stay in the person's life for years and sabotages their life. So that's what we're looking at. And I'm not attacking you. But if you feel as if any of these things pertain to you, well, it's not an attack. It's an opportunity for you to catch it and make the adjustment for your own benefit. So I'm going to start off with Proverbs chapter 9, starting from verse 6. Forsake foolishness and live, and go in the way of understanding. He who corrects a scoffer gets shame for himself, and he who rebukes a wicked man only harms himself. Do not correct a scoffer, lest he hate you. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. All right. Now, as I said to you, we're talking about the whole idea of people hiding, not taking accountability, deflecting, and trying to deceive the person that they're talking to. In some cases, trying to deceive God himself. And in all cases, ultimately deceiving their own selves. This is extremely dangerous. And what we want to do is we want to be the type of person, we want to be the type of people that don't allow this to interfere with our lives and cripple our lives. Now, this type of behavior usually happens when we are being spoken to, especially in a corrective manner. So someone is correcting us. We are being instructed. We are being rebuked. We are being talked to. We are being admonished. Someone is giving us guidance or trying to give us guidance or expressing disapproval with something that we did. Maybe we hurt them. We might not have even known that we did that, but the person is now saying, hey, what you did hurt me, etc. That is when this type of hiding type behavior happens, when we try to deflect and try to dodge it. Okay? And why do we do it? A number of different things it could be. But here are a few reasons. One, we do it because some people are so fragile in their pride and in their ego that every criticism that a person brings to them, even if the person came to them with a constructive attitude, with a pleasant attitude, with an attitude that is clearly trying to be helpful, trying to be honest, trying to build a bridge, trying to encourage communication. Even if a person comes with that sort of attitude, some people, no matter what is being said, as long as it is not positive, they take it as a personal attack on their core character. Okay? Now, For instance, you may not be a bad person, but you might have done a bad thing or a immature thing or something that people would not have expected of you at your level, at your age, at your position. Okay? And you might have made a simple mistake. We all make mistakes. But for some people, they take any sort of criticism, as constructive as it might be, as a personal attack on their character. And they're not thinking to themselves, oh, I made a mistake and I need to fix this small subset of my character or this habit that I have started to adopt, or I need to make this slight modification in my tone or in my action or in my thought process. They're not thinking that. They're thinking, this person does not like me. They're thinking, this person thinks I'm a bad person. Not this small little thing about me. This person thinks that the whole of me is bad. So they become incredibly defensive immediately. And they fight tooth and nail and they try not to concede to anything. Even if they know it's true, they try not to give in or not to give any ground. There are some people that think of every interaction between themselves and someone that's correcting them as a combat zone, as a combative interaction. They don't see that someone can say something that is negative, and sometimes it may come across a little harsh. Sometimes the person may be doing their very best to bring it across in a nice way. Whatever the case, some people just take offense. They take offense. All right? So one of the reasons why this happens to people is that they think that everything that a person tells them is an attack on their personal character. Another reason why people get extremely defensive is if they're extremely proud. A proud person, as we have seen in previous conversations, a proud person has an overinflated self-worth, an overinflated sense of self-esteem and self-worth. They think that they're better than you. Not only you, but everybody else, for that matter. Sometimes they think that they're better than God, and they love to admit it. A self-centered person, a proud person, typically has an extremely fragile ego, especially if a subordinate person, someone down there, should dare tell them something about their lives. You see, people are not always very rational. They don't always make sense. People are complex beings, and we are shaped by a multitude of different things at any given moment. Our internal emotions, our physiological dynamic at the time, if we're hungry, if we're tired, if we're exhausted, if we're frustrated, and then the emotional components, and if we're anxious about something that's coming up, all of these things could be contributing to a person's feeling at a specific time. And for that reason, human beings are just complex. But for these proud people, again, it could be so many different things that are contributing. But one of the big things we need to understand is that proud people, and if you're like this, well, you need to work on it. But proud people really think that they're better than everyone else. They may not want to say so. They may know that it's not right. They may know that it doesn't make sense to say so, but that's really how they feel, and that's how they behave. Nobody can tell me nothing. All right? I've seen that type of person for sure in my life. Some people hide and try to make excuses and that type of thing because they are ashamed of what they've done. So they know they've done this thing. They know it was wrong and they're ashamed of it. And if they can successfully gerrymander the conversation or sidestep certain things and massage the conversation in such a way as to not look bad or as to not have to plain out confess that they did foolishness, they would prefer to do that. Okay? And people are very sensitive. Look, this is not only a personal thing, this is a societal thing. You would hear people say things like, okay, you would see a woman on TV or something. Now, the woman, big, fat, and out of shape. All right? Now, we are not attacking her character as such. We're not saying she's a bad person. We're not saying that she is good for nothing and has no value as a human. But we may be saying that she's overweight and unattractive, unpleasant to look at, and ultimately not a good candidate for a relationship or a marriage for the average man. In other words, the average man would look at 10 women, see the overweight one, the big one, and say, well, I prefer not to engage myself with that lady. Okay, I know people would get upset because a man would make that judgment. The man would say, well, I don't like overweight people. And then they would come and try to tell the overweight lady, well, you know what? Don't listen to them. All right? There's nothing wrong with you. The man never said anything was wrong with her. And they would say, you can love yourself the way you are. And to some degree, that is true. In that we should not take our value from what other people say. One, we should take our value from what God says about us. And we should also understand that the core of a person is what God is interested in primarily. So yes, in that aspect, she can love herself as she is. But if you tell her that she should just remain overweight, she should not try to eat in a more disciplined fashion, that she should not choose her meals and how she eats carefully. If we don't tell her you should consider exercising and adopting a consistent exercise program, okay, have we really helped her? Have we really loved her if we refuse to tell her the things that could make her healthier and make her happier and make her more attractive on a basic human interaction level? No, because we want to hide for her. We want to hide her insecurities, and we want to push them down, suppress it. We don't want to address it. We want to just tuck it away because it feels bad and it's uncomfortable. And it's something that, oh boy, her feelings must have been hurt. And this whole thing is awkward. And we don't really want to talk about it. So let's not talk about it. Let's just try to push it off and let's try to get back to something that doesn't offend anyone or doesn't point out any uncomfortable truth. That's what society is like in many situations. All right? They don't like the truth. Because the truth is sometimes ugly, is sometimes uncomfortable, difficult to stomach, especially when it's about yourself, especially when you have known it was about yourself for 10 years, but you refuse to address it. And you keep hiding it, and you keep hiding it, and you keep hiding it, and then somebody points out the truth to you 10 years later. Oh, how much it hurts. Because you know it's true. But you've been trying not to deal with it for 10 years. And here is this person trying to bring it to my attention in a way that I can't escape. Oh, and people take offense. Okay? So we start to hide. We start to hide when we are proud people. We start to hide when we are ashamed of what we have done. We start to hide when we take everything as a personal attack. And If you practice living like that, you're always going to be vulnerable, weak, afraid, anxious, afraid that somebody brings it up, afraid that somebody talks about it, afraid that somebody recognizes it in you. You're not confident because you don't want anybody to see. You want to hide it. All right? You could also encompass the whole idea of personal insecurities and personal defects. So, just like I was saying, like a person overweight or something that knows that, they could do better. That's not character flaw per se. That's not something that God is judging us on per se. Now, I do believe God judges us on discipline and how we treat our bodies and how we manage all of our resources in general. Those people that you see that become obscenely obese, completely out of weight, and that are bedridden, and that are spilling over 3 airplane seats, and that need people to push them around on a cart because they have become immobile because of their poor decisions. I don't believe God co-signs on any of that. That is indeed gluttony. And there's nobody that should find themselves in that position. That is definitely ungodly, in my opinion. But if you're slightly overweight and you got a little chubbing thing, I don't think God vexed for you per se, especially if it's a matter of you trying to manage 100 things and you have been unable to master that bit. But if you're mindful of it and cognizant of it and you are making plans to deal with it and you're actually addressing it, I don't think God is vexed with a person that fluctuates in weight simply because of the challenges of life and so on. I don't think that that's something that God is upset about. I do think that God is upset about the person who throws off all responsibility and just say, I can just eat what I want and I can become 500 pounds. I don't think that God is pleased with that. Okay? But back to what I was saying. People that have these small insecurities, maybe something about your teeth, maybe you have a big birthmark, maybe you stutter or some insecurity and so on. Now, these aren't character flaws. These aren't things that you need to worry about per se before God. These are just things that happen in your life. These are just things that happen to be part of your life. You got this problem, you got a scratch here, you got a scar there, whatever. You got a mole, different things. Because of how society is and because of how we judge things on vision and so on, sometimes people may become self-conscious. Trying to hide that or trying to ignore it or not addressing it, not owning it, not being comfortable with it, all of that can lead to you being weak and vulnerable and afraid and anxious about what people are thinking and what people are saying. Right? Anxious of what this person can say if I go in here. So we got actual sins and character flaws, and then we have superficial things. But all of these things, if we deal with these things as hiding from them and not dealing with them, if we try to hide them, push them behind, and not address them, we are always going to find ourselves in a weak position. And we can be tempted to become like these people who deflect, never want to take accountability, never want to accept that they might have been wrong in a situation, never want to concede that they may have made a mistake, and they try to exonerate themselves from every wrongdoing. It wasn't me, it can't be me, it ain't my fault. And then you know what they do sometimes? They try to point it on you and say it was your fault. It was you that do such and such. And if you didn't do such and such, I would have never have to do such and such. It's your fault. You see that in narcissistic people, right? Everything is about them. Every good thing is about them. And everything that ain't good, they are a victim of it. It was never them fault, right? It's never me. Okay. If you are that type of person, you are sabotaging your life. Now, I'm not saying that it is easy to address certain things, address shame and address mistakes, or address genuine character flaws that you may have. I'm not saying that it's easy to address those things and to be honest about these things and just to face it and to move forward in a forthright manner and keep your head up. But I'm not saying that that is 100% easy, but I'm saying it's a lot easier and a lot more peaceful and a lot more comfortable than living in fear and living in a state of hiding. All right? Back to this Proverbs chapter 9, from verse 7 in this case. He who corrects a scoffer gets shame for himself, and he who rebukes a wicked man only harms himself. Do not correct a scoffer lest he hate you. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a just man, and he will increase in learning. These three scriptures here, right? These three verses are so powerful. Let's just take a look at them quickly. He who corrects a scoffer gets shame for himself. Now, the writer is here talking about the person who's doing the speaking. He's saying he's talking to wise men, or he's talking to those that would be wise, and he's saying to them, listen, they got certain people that you don't want to have a serious conversation with. You don't want to correct them because those people are unable to receive correction in a mature manner. Right? So the person who's writing here is saying, you don't want to correct that type of person. But what we are identifying here is that there is such a person. And we are looking at what the Bible is saying about that person. The Bible is saying about that person that it is a wicked person. Okay? The Bible is saying that is a scoffer and that is a wicked person. He who corrects a scoffer gets shame for himself, and he who rebukes a wicked man only harms himself. In other words, they got people that if you try to correct them, if you try to give them guidance and steer them away from going down a wrong path and steer them onto a better path, a more productive path, a more financially prosperous path, or whatever the benefit may be, the writer is here saying they got people that you want to avoid. Don't tell them nothing. Don't try to help. Don't try to steer him in a right path because he's not going to appreciate it. In fact, he's going to turn around and try to blame you. That sounds like a person that you want to be, where God, through his word, through his servants, is basically saying, you want to avoid helping certain people because they will not appreciate your help. They're going to turn it around and make you the enemy. Do you want to be that type of person? Can you see that being that type of person immediately cuts you off from all sorts of different help? That's a bad thing. All right, verse 8. Do not correct a scoffer lest he hate you. All right, you don't want to be a person that can't receive correction because you're so ashamed or so afraid of the truth. You don't want to be that type of person. Now listen, on the flip side, listen to what the writer here is saying. Rebuke a wise man and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man and he will be still wiser. Teach a just man and he will increase in learning. In other words, wise people welcome criticism. They welcome input. They welcome correction and guidance because wise people want to avoid mistakes. Wise people know that mistakes are out there, right? Mistakes are oftentimes hidden from our own eyes. We can have blind spots as we walk and as we do our work. Or somebody could introduce another concept or another way or an additional thing. There's so many little things that we could benefit from if we're open to receiving information. Now, I urge you to think of it this way. The wise man understands that he is a construction site, if you will. The foolish man and the people I was describing earlier, they believe, or they want to believe, that they are a finished building, a finished product, where everything is right and everything is in place. Now, if I'm on a construction site and something spills on the ground, I'm not going to make a whole set of noise because I know that things in under construction, right? I know that we moving up, we building stuff, everything imperfect. Yeah, we know that everything imperfect. If you follow what I'm saying, maybe let me use a different analogy. Let's say you are cleaning your bedroom or your house and things are out of order and somebody moves something that's already out of order and puts it more out of order. Well, it's not that much of a big issue because I am in the stage of cleaning up stuff and putting things in order. So it's not a big problem. In other words, I know I'm not a perfect person. I know that I make mistakes in several different areas. I'm aware of my proclivity to do that is wrong. And I am aware of my inability to overcome this specific issue in my life that is wrong at the moment. But I'm working on it. And if you pointed out to me, well, no surprise, because I knew that already. One, because I have already been addressing it. And two, I wouldn't mind hearing somebody point out for me because I might not have recognized that I was being that way or I was saying things that were offensive or whatever the case is. So it's good to have somebody to point it out. And you can say, right, well, thanks. Because I don't want to be like that. But you just helped me to see that I was being like that. And so I received the criticism in a good way. The other person now is thinking that everything is perfect. So if you come and tell me something out of order, I vex. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm perfect, right? I can't do nothing wrong. So what do you mean that something out of order? You can't be telling me that everything in order. Away with you. The wise man is going to welcome the criticism. All right, jumping here quickly to Genesis 18. So we are here at a situation where God comes to visit Abraham. If we started from verse 1, we would read, Then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth trees of Mamre as he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him, and when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the ground. So this is Abraham bowing down to these 3 men. Verse 3, and said, My Lord, if I have now found favor in your sight, do not pass on by your servant. Please, let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourself under the tree. And I will bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh your hearts. After that you may pass by, inasmuch as you have come to your servant. They said, Do as you have said. So the 3 men said, Do as you have said. Verse 6, So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah and said, Quickly, make ready 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender and good calf, gave it to a young man, and he hastened to prepare it. So he took butter and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree as they ate. Then they said to him, Where is Sarah, your wife? So he said, Here, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return to you according to the time of life, and behold, Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. Sarah was listening in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah had passed the age of childbearing. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And the Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I surely bear a child, since I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, No, but you did laugh. Then the men rose from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them on the way. This is a perfect example of what we do every day. I think I described it sufficiently before, but here Sarah is trying to hide it from God. She laughed within herself. She knew what she thought. She discarded that idea. She did not believe God. She scoffed at that. So whatever. These men can be serious. And the Lord said, why did she laugh? She says, I ain't laugh. Right? Now you know that. You know what this, you've seen this before. You've seen this thing that Sarah has done before, and you are possibly guilty of it too. All we're saying tonight is this is a dangerous thing. It is better for you to acknowledge that you're not perfect, acknowledge that you're a sinner, acknowledge that you need to be corrected sometimes, and work on the things that are not in proper order. Don't hide. Right? Don't hide. Accept the truth and deal with it. I'll share this last thing and then I'll close out. So one time I was a young boy and I had borrowed something from a person. But somehow I misplaced it. And let's say I was supposed to borrow it over the weekend and bring it back on Monday. I misplaced it, so I didn't know where it was. So when Monday come, I didn't know what to say to the person. I didn't want to confront the situation. So I hid from the person and tried not to interact with the person because I lost the man's thing. And I hid again on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. I can't remember how long it was, but I remember it being long. Now I was a little boy, so you know things that seem longer than they really are. But I can't remember. It could have been a week. It could have been 2 weeks. It could have been just 3 days. I'm not sure. But it seemed like a long time though, because I was inconveniencing myself. I couldn't go out to play with the other guys and so on because I was dodging this person, hiding from a situation. Until one day, I had to face the person and I had to tell them what happened. And, we resolved it and I was free. I could go and play again. I was free to go and play again. I could go and do the things I usually would have done as a kid, as a boy. But for as long as I was hiding, I was in prison in a sense, living in anxiety and fear and really just missing out on the rest of life. And from that time, I believe I learned to deal with things straight on. Right? No longer afraid of confrontation. That's another reason why some people hide. They hide because they don't like confrontation. They don't like uncomfortable conversations. They don't like to tell somebody the truth. They want to hide it. No, you can't. You can't do that. Some things are uncomfortable. And you need to be comfortable with that. That's the only way that you get to overcome it and to conquer it and to be free from the fear and the discomfort. Everything ain't comfortable and every conversation isn't comfortable and every situation isn't comfortable. And sometimes you need to have a uncomfortable conversation that's undesirable. But that's the only way that you can have freedom and peace. All right, so in wrapping up, I'm just saying, we spoke about a lot of things. I hope that you understand. I'm sure most of you would understand. But the whole idea here is you don't want to be a person that is hiding, dodging, avoiding, never taking accountability, never conceding to faults that you know full well you have committed or character flaws that you know full well that you have adopted in your character. The best approach is to do as they say in Proverbs 9. Be a wise person. Verse 8 and verse 9. Proverbs chapter 9, verse 8. Rebuke a wise man and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man and he will be still wiser. Teach a just man and he will increase in learning. That's the kind of people we want to be. We want to be those people that are happy when we are able to get correction. We don't want to hide. We don't want to deflect. We want to take accountability and become stronger for it. And in the latter example, we don't want to be those type of people that hiding from uncomfortable situations, especially if it's an important thing. You deal with it, right? You don't run around the place. You will never be strong and confident if you adopt that cowardice, hiding type of personality. All right? So I can close here. Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you again for your word that opens up for us life and shows us ourselves, the good and the bad. I pray, Lord, that you help us to receive the word. Help us to choose to be wise and to readily accept criticism, even if it is not comfortable to hear it. Help us not to be those that are cowards, that run away from uncomfortable situations. But help us to confront what we need to confront. Help us not to avoid taking accountability for our actions and our decisions. Help us not to hide. Help us not to make excuses. Help us not to avoid the uncomfortable truths that are relevant in our lives. But help us to be mature, take on the challenges, and grow as a result. And have freedom, peace, maturity, growth, improvement, and be all around better people. So Lord, I just thank you again for your word. Please cause the words to do its work in our hearts individually. You know who needs what and when we need it. And I pray, Father, that you will put this message in the hands of the right people. And we just thank you again for being here with us. And I just pray, Lord, that your will be done in our lives. We pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Hi guys, Joel Brooks here at the Insight Podcast. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video or found it informative, interesting, or helpful in any way, please give it a like and consider sharing it with your friends. If you want to stay connected, you can check us out at our website, insight.joelbrooksonline.com, and you can also check us out on social media. Links in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and God bless.